Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. My name's Katie Stickley. I'm the co-founder of Did Teach. For those of you who are not familiar with Did Teach, we're set up by teachers for teachers. The idea is to signpost you into other careers after teaching or ways to diversify your income whilst you're still teaching. Tonight, we are looking at this webinar about finding career direction, which is really important. For me, it was all about sort of finding my career direction after teaching with this business. And I was very fortunate to meet Milo Skene as part of that journey. Milo really understands how institutionalized it can be with teaching because of his background and his career. And so it was great because for me, I went straight from education, straight into education. So what on earth were the jobs out there? Where do you go? Milo, do you want to talk a bit about your experience with being institutionalized?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose slightly like being a teacher, which is all encompassing. I was in the army for 12 years, decided to leave, and I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. So I started looking around. Lots of people gave me advice, and lots of people said I should go into financial services, management consultancy. And so I did, and it was the worst possible thing I could have done. I absolutely hated it. And I basically lasted 15 months, left by mutual consent. And then set up 1807 Careers, helping people change their career. And I'd always been fascinated behind the sort of psychology about how to change career, why, how you do it. And so we've been up and running, and we have our own methodologies. We've adapted some other people's. Obviously, we've worked with a lot of teachers with Katie. I think we still worked with over 400 teachers now over the years. And ultimately it is about you as an individual. What makes you tick, what are your values, what's important to you. And there will be a lot of advice out there about going down well-trodden paths, what people think you should do. But actually, as we also go into a little bit later on, it's looking deeply inside yourself and thinking, actually, genuinely, what would I love to do?
Yeah, and I think the important thing is about sort of understanding where you come from. And one of the most common phrases I hear is "I'm just a teacher," and that's quite shocking when you think on a daily basis how much teachers do. So, Milo, tell us a little bit more about why this phrase is complete rubbish.
Yeah, I think it is. I think as a teacher, you're sculpting children's lives for the rest of their lives. This impact you have on them is huge. It's absolutely massive. It really is. And the amount of pupils that go through every year, is vast. So the impact you have is absolutely massive. And, what I do think about teachers, and, obviously I've learned a lot more since working with Katie, over the last 7 years or so working with teachers, is that actually all sorts of skills, there's planning, organization, problem solving, communication skills, to name but a few. And all of those things are very, very applicable outside teaching. And if you look at the vast majority of job specifications that are advertised, they will have pretty much the same things on: problem solving, communication, planning, organization, et cetera, et cetera. So I think teachers are very, very well placed. And, the diversity of sectors we've seen teachers go into, I think sort of speaks volumes about what teachers can bring to the party.
Yeah, absolutely. And it still surprises me today where teachers go, but it is so unique, isn't it, to them and what they want to do with their lives. And I think there's a barrier to stopping people, this sort of idea about this imposter syndrome that you can't do anything else. How do you encourage people with your career coaching to sort of shake off that imposter syndrome and embrace their key skills?
Yeah, well, I think first of all, recognizing imposter syndrome is very, very, very common. A lot of people have it, right from, sort of early age to the heads of the biggest countries in the world, the biggest organizations in the world. A lot of people get it. So it's not uncommon. But what we have a little tool that we use to try and challenge that. Because often what's interesting is that we tell ourselves these things. And there's an organization called the London Science Foundation. And they have done research on how many individual thoughts we have a day on average. And they reckon from their studies, each of us has between 20,000 and 60,000 individual thoughts a day. Now, they also think that 80% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. So we're telling ourselves these things, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough experience, again and again and again. And they also say that 95% of our thoughts, 95%, are repetitive thoughts. So they're thoughts that we've had again. So you can see how over time you tell yourself these things again and again and again, that you start to actually believe them. And they're not actually truths, they're just beliefs. And so we get people to start challenging that, to push themselves outside of their comfort zone, and go for things that they genuinely want to do. And so, part of the whole sort of the most successful people we work with are people that do start challenging those. They do push themselves outside of their comfort zone, along with motivation, momentum, being prepared when opportunities arise. But it's a very common thing. But again, it's something we do help people overcome, or at least challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Being brave, it's quite a tricky thing, isn't it? But I think you're standing up in front of sometimes assemblies with hundreds of children in, you can definitely be brave and back yourself a bit more. And there's a task that you can do to help yourself. By doing a bit of a key skills audit. So just taking a moment to reflect on the skills that you've got, that you've gained from the classroom, working out the impact of those skills as well. That's really important, because I think as teachers, we literally don't have enough time, do we? We move on very, very quickly to the next cohort of children, the next new initiative from senior leadership or government or whatever it is. And we don't actually have time to reflect on what a great job we did that year or that term. So Milo, how do you think with key skills, what's important about sort of finding career direction, looking at these key skills in particular?
Yeah, so I think one of the main things is looking at the skills that you enjoy using the most. And, you may be amazing using a certain skill, but you just not really enjoy it. And actually, I think it's really important to look at yourself and think, what do I love doing? What, genuinely, when I look back, what am I most proud of? What would I love to go through again? So I think thinking about skills in those ways. And ironically, one of the things that we initially do is get people to ignore transferable skills completely when they're thinking about their next steps. So put it out the window and think, right, what would I love to do? Because everybody starts at zero at some point. There was a stage when Bill Gates did not know how to code, but then he taught himself. And so, upskilling people, you can upskill these things, but think, what do I love? And what I would suggest you do is keep a note on your phone of jobs, companies, sectors that you're naturally drawn to, and just note it down on a list as you think of it. And again, ignore transferable skills. And then what you can do after a couple of weeks or a month is have a look at that list and see what themes are running through. And then what you can do is work out the path. Okay, what's the path to actually get there? So little things like you might put down, for example, doctor. You just love the idea about being a doctor, not sure why, but you do. And you think, right, the path to get there would to be do a year's science A levels, 5 years med school, and then you qualify. And you think, okay, it's just not going to happen. It's not feasible. It's too expensive and too time consuming. But what you can then do is think, okay, well, what is it about being a doctor that I'm drawn to? Is it an interest in health? Is it helping other people? Is it career progression, working in teams, stability? And then you think, okay, well, where can I then imprint that elsewhere? So it's quite a useful little sort of exercise to do.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think really, Milo, the thing that shocked me the most working with you was I never thought about using my values to find career direction. And I think this is the biggest impact we see, isn't it, when we talk to teachers about the values that they have, and how you can actually find companies that align with those values. Would you tell us a bit more detail about that?
Yeah, I think, values, as I'm sure you're all aware, are very, very deeply ingrained in all of us. And they are what they are. There's not necessarily right or wrong. They are what they are. And when we work with people, we don't try and change those values. We embrace those values. And, if it, for example, is making money so you can provide for your family, fantastic. If it's helping others, all of these things, it is what it is. And I think that finding organizations that genuinely share your values is really important. Now, a lot of companies, particularly sort of big corporates, will have their values emblazoned on the reception of their building as you go in. It doesn't necessarily mean they genuinely hold those values. And so I think by speaking to people, getting a really good idea about the organization, how it works, what it's like, is really important, so that you can see if there's that chemistry there, if those shared values. And all the research that's been done on this is that if you share values with the other people you work with in the organization, you tend to be happier, more fulfilled, paid more, etc. So there's huge benefits in thinking, okay, genuinely, what are my values in life? What's important to me?
Yeah, and I think with that in mind, I mean, if you're looking for a particular, a new career, you're going to have to spend time researching that company, aren't you? You're going to have to spend time really delving into what that company are doing, what their sort of future plans are, how they treat people. And so therefore you want to be engaged in that, don't you? So really finding those companies that align with your values, you're just finding a good fit for yourself, and you're definitely more likely to thrive in that sort of environment.
Completely. And there was someone who I was chatting to, it was about 6 years ago now, and he was a huge football fan. I'm not going to say which football club it was, but anyway, somehow he got offered a marketing role at his football club, who he has been supporting for 30 years. His dream role. It's a huge club, one of the big 4 or 5 clubs, in England. And he got there and he left after 5 months because it was so horrific. And wow. So it's interesting that, and I was sort of chatting to him about it, and he was saying that all he saw was his football club. That was it. He didn't do research into the actual running of the company, the organization, the people he was working with, his bosses, what they were like. And it was a big, big lesson, but something I think really important to bear in mind. Really do your research on the company. Speak to as many people as you can if you really, to find out about a company. And again, you can always ask to speak to other people in the company during the whole sort of application interview process.
Yeah, absolutely. The other sort of career path that we find teachers going in is monetizing their hobbies and their interests. And we've had a few teachers do this. We've had a lady who we work with who she was a head teacher of an SEN school, and she really wanted to set up her own business to do with diversity, equality and inclusion in schools. She's now a consultant doing that, going into schools and challenging these ideas and making these communities a better place. A great example of using your passions and your interests and developing a business from it. Milo, how else can you sort of monetize your hobbies or use your hobbies and your interests to find career direction?
So I think it's one of those things now more than ever, people are monetizing their hobbies, and they're actually doing things that they genuinely love. And I think there's much more of a focus now, and again, we place a heavy focus on this, about things that you genuinely enjoy doing. And the access to information is huge now, whereas you go back 20, 30 years, it was difficult to find out about certain niche sort of industries, whereas now, bang, you get on, search on the internet, bang, you can find out about it. And I think, funny enough, interestingly, it's one of the best pieces I ever got given when I was at a crossroads in my career was by someone, and he simply said to me, explore life. There is so much out there that we don't know exists. And so go, think about what you enjoy doing. Think about people who inspire you, colleagues, friends, families, and you go out and explore and find out what's there, because there is so much.
Brilliant. I'm just putting in the chat that if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Milo and myself, please just post it in the comment there and we'll read some of those out. But I think the important thing about finding career direction is really staying true to yourself, isn't it, Milo? So not trying to sort of shoehorn yourself into a job or, just go after particular jobs because that's what you think you should do, or that's what family members or friends say you should do. But really sort of try to find yourself first and what's going to make you happy. What do you think? What are your sort of top tips with finding career direction, do you think?
So I think there's a great book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by someone called Stephen R. Covey, and it was written, some sort of decades ago. But in it, there's a really interesting exercise that he gets you to imagine that you're your own funeral, and there's a family member there, a friend, and a work colleague, and you're listening to the work colleague reading out the eulogy about you. So at the very, very end of it all, you're thinking, what would I love to be said about me? Is it making a difference to the world? Is it inspiring others? Is it leaving a legacy? Is it just making sure you have a high quality of family life or life for yourself? And so you start with the end in mind. And often that then clears paths for ways for you to go. Now, it could be very general. It could be you want to start up your own company. But of course, then you can start thinking more and more about it. And I think having that as a shining light is really important, because it's so easy to start, if you have an idea of an area you want to go into, but you're not quite getting there, it's very easy to veer off back to the sort of safe options. But I think the benefits of doing things and working in areas that you love are so huge. They really are.
And Josh has asked an interesting question here, and I do find that when we do our workshops, it is a little bit of a stumbling block. How do you know what your values are, Milo?
Well, I think it's time spent on reflecting is so important, and just having time with yourself away from everything else. So away from the phone, away from, other people, and just really reflecting and thinking, genuinely, what is important. And then, a number of things you can do. You can look back and you can think, okay, well, what am I really proud of in my life? Not just work, in my life. What am I really proud of? And I think it's one of those things. And coming up with those lists and actually writing it down. And it's one of the things that we do in the sort of workshops and the work that we do one-to-one is we have a list of values. We have about 100 values on there. And again, it's embracing that and thinking, okay, what is important to me genuinely, and asking other people what they think. So people close to us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for a lot of us who went into teaching, there's values that we see coming up again and again. Kindness comes up an awful lot. Honesty comes up a lot. It's one of those professions, isn't it, that you go into as a little bit of a vocation, and so therefore there are certain sort of ethical reasons that you perhaps go into it. You might just love your subject, but there's a lot of give, I think, in teaching. So you can think about what sort of person you are as well, and what sort of role model you are for the students that you teach, and think about those as your values too. And I think one thing that is really important when you're thinking about changing career is not thinking about quitting teaching, because you're not quitting teaching. You're always going to be a teacher. You've always got that certificate. You can go back at any point. And we've had people do that, haven't we, Milo? We've had people who have left for a few years and they've worked in different industries, and then they've taken those skills back into the classroom. We also have had people that work 1 day a week teaching and 4 days a week with an ed tech company. Again, it's your career and your life, so you can sort of shape this next step however you want to. And if that means keeping a foot in the door of classroom, that's absolutely fine. But if it means leaving the classroom, that's not quitting teaching. That is just finding a new challenge and focusing on a new area. Milo, anything you want to add with that?
Yeah, I think it is one of those things. It's backing yourself. It really is. It's backing yourself. And, it is such an uncertain time when you're thinking about moving on from teaching, looking for a job, because you don't know how long it's going to take. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what pay you're going to get. You don't know what your colleagues are going to be like. You don't know what your clients are going to be like. So it's a very, very uncertain time. And again, we see it right from 17-year-olds up to 66-year-olds who've been a partner at a law firm for 20 years, earning millions of pounds. Everybody, it's that uncertain time. It really is. But you're not the first, and you will not be the last. And I think they're having comrades in arms, other people, chatting to other people about their experiences, their journey, I think helps hugely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly feel that you should be so proud that you went into the profession in the first place, and gaining all those skills that Milo talked about in the first place with these sort of key skills. And you're not just a teacher, you are so much more than that. And you've really developed those within your classroom practice. And if you want to take them elsewhere, that's absolutely fine. And if you want to grow and develop those skills, that's really important as human beings as well. Well, that's pretty much the end of the sort of tips of how to find career direction. What we're going to do now is we're going to stay on for those of you that want to, and we're just going to talk to you about the career transition workshops that Milo and myself run. And Milo's going to talk to you about the one-to-one program that he has. Don't feel that you have to stay for this, but if you are interested in support, career advice and guidance, then stay on and have a listen. If not, then thank you very much for your time this evening. Right, Milo, just bringing up the slides here. So career transition workshop. So this is something that Milo and I created about 7 years ago. And I say we created, it's Milo's really. And I jumped on the bandwagon with it because I realized that as a teacher, I was, like I said before, very institutionalized. I didn't know what other careers were out there. I mean, literally, if you asked me what careers were out there, I would give you the happy families of careers. So doctor, baker, lawyer, hairdresser, that was my limit. And actually, sometimes I gave my year 11 students career guidance without actually knowing what was out there. So when I met Milo, it was a fantastic opportunity to really learn and explore other careers that are out there, how exciting life is outside of the classroom. So we started creating this workshop where we basically, from the start, we look at career direction, we unpick exactly where you should go, how you go about it, we give you the structure, we talk about networking, we go into depth on CVs, cover letters, applications, interview techniques, really setting you up for those next steps. And the first person we had on our workshop sort of blew my mind a little bit. So Jack was a primary school PE teacher. And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so he's going to change career to something to do with cricket because he loves cricket, or physiotherapy because part of his degree was that. And I had no idea, like, really how narrow-minded I was thinking. And he became an international cyber headhunter. And it was just like, wow, for me to think, hang on a minute, this guy has done that. And actually, it makes perfect sense. When I spoke to Milo about it, he said, but think about his values. He's a competitive guy. He was quite young. He wanted to work in the city. He wanted to work in a career where he did overtime. He got paid for it. And, he'd get the edge on other competitors. And he wanted to live in that sort of world. And that made perfect sense, actually, that, you sort of stay true to yourself and what you want to do. And on a completely different strain, we had a lady who did the workshop who was an RE teacher, literally was married to the job, did not have any hobbies, any interest, just all she wanted to do was work. And I said to her, well, what do you spend your money on? And she said, well, when I have a bit of extra cash, I really like going into Lush. The shop staff are so welcoming. They're really friendly, really polite. I really resonate with them. So that's what I like to do. I like to go in there and spend some money. She's now an area manager for Lush, and she's absolutely loving it. And this is the whole point really about the workshop, is it's about what you want to do. And we unpick that for you, and we give you the skills to kind of move forward with that. And there is support, there is backup. We proofread your CV. We invite you to a networking group. That's all there for you. But we give you the materials to do that. Now, Milo has got a slightly different program. It's a bit more intense, and it's a bit more, it is a one-to-one, isn't it, Milo? So this one is a bit more of a group workshop. Whereas Milo, would you like to talk about your programs that you've got with 1807?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of options, and these programs are very much tailored to the individual. So they're one-on-one sessions. And we find, some people like the workshops because they're with other people. They can sort of, hear about their stories. And then we get some people who come straight on the advanced program or the gold program, which I'll go on to, or we get some people who do the workshop and also this. So there's a number of different options here. But I think the sort of one-to-one is, is very much about the individual. It's really getting, the detail about you, who you are, what makes you tick. And, we cover sort of career direction, CV, interview techniques, networking, salary negotiation. And critically, one of the main things we do on the programs is introductions. So there's something called the hidden job market. Now, these are jobs that are available, but they're not advertised. So you will have seen this, I'm sure, as teachers beforehand. When you decide, or an organization decides, right, we want a new employee, there's then a time gap while they come up with a job specification, speak to recruiters, work out what the compensation is going to be, get sign off, final sign off, come up with an advert, and then it goes out. Now, often that time is months. From when they decided, right, we want a new employee, to when it's actually advertised is months. And so we place a big emphasis on accessing that hidden job market, because if you can get in there before the job advert gets out, the benefits are huge. Number one, less competition. You're not a random CV amongst 200 others. Okay. Number two, organizations don't want to have to pay a recruiter, put an advert out, get 200 CVs in, first round interviews, second round interviews, etc., because it's very, very time consuming and it costs a lot of money. And so what we do is we focus on accessing that hidden job market by going out, speaking to people. And we have a whole sort of methodology about this as well and how to access it. And we reckon it's sort of 60-70% of people get their jobs this way. And so it's a tool amongst other tools as well, like obviously, Did Teach's wonderful website. And so it's a tool amongst others. And again, it's very much the focus is on you and it's holding you to account. And again, yes, you have family, friends that may be able to do it. But again, if we sort of come up with a list of things for you to do, where they're saying, right, this is the deadline, here we go. And also we're there and we're with you all the way. So it's for 3 months, 3 or 4 months. In reality, we're with you all the way until you sign on, however long it takes. Now, the reason we say 3 months is that I think it's 84% of people we work with get a job within 3 months. So it's a realistic time period. Now, neither Katie or I can guarantee a time within what you're going to get a job. We can't do that. There's too many variables. We'd love to be able to, but we can't. But it's about being by your side throughout this, sharing successes. Looking for a job is an emotional roller coaster. It really is. Things are going to happen that you don't want. And so it's having, us there to just make sure we're with you all the way, motivation, momentum, to try and keep that up. And so this is the advanced program, which is psychometric profiling, 6 hours face-to-face, ongoing support. So get in touch anytime. So little things like if you put an application or about to put an application in for a job, you can fill it out, send it to us. We then have a look at it against the job spec to make recommendations about what you put, because of course you want it to be guided towards the job, for you to then amend and then send off. So that's the advanced program, and then we have the gold program, which is similar, but it's more detailed. It's 12 hours. It's more face to face. And what happens sometimes is someone will start on the advanced program and then decide, actually, I'm going to upgrade, or they stay on the advanced program. And so we make it very fluid, and so whatever works, for you at the end of the day. But the idea is we're with you all the way, unlimited ongoing support, and we're there with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Milo. And I think, it is important to find the right career coach for you. Milo and myself might not be the right fit for you. There are other people out there. No doubt you've seen them. But if you do need that extra help, we have got a proven track record of working with teachers, haven't we, Milo? Like we said before, close to 400 teachers have been on our program. We are the longest running UK teacher career change program. So there's sort of credibility to what we're doing. I know education, Milo knows companies, and he knows about career changing. So there's a nice kind of synergy between the two of us. So no hard sell here at all. But if you are interested, we do have some places available I think we've got 6 places left on our career transition workshop for October half term. And Milo, you obviously, you know, it's bespoke, so you have individual places, which is a bit different. So the October half term ones, I will put the date in the YouTube clip. I'll also email it out to you. If you're on our database, you'll get those as well if you're interested. But thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions or any queries, you know, just ping me a message. My email's on the website, and my phone number's on there as well. If you want to have a chat with me about career direction, you are more than welcome. But thank you so much. And Milo, thank you for your time tonight, and for, you know, unpicking about finding career direction. I think that's really important, that you know where you want to go first before you just do a scattergun approach.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.